Time is right. All right, let's get started then. All right, so calling to order the Parks Rec and Greenway Board meeting Tuesday, March 5th, 2024 at 9 a.m. on the dot. Look at us go. All right, so we have no remote, we do have a quorum. Gang's all here. We have no remote participation, so moving on to adopting the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And the previous minutes. Does anybody have changes to the previous minutes? I assume not. Do I have a motion to adopt the previous minutes?
So moved.
Got a second?
Somebody. Seconded.
All in favor?
I can't second my own, right?
Right.
I would.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. All right, so public comment. We do have some visitors this morning. I know we have one who is observing, and we have another who would like to address the board. So, oh, he's going to get you a microphone. Not that this is such a broad room that
But
you
for
can't
the-
be heard.
For the recording.
Yes, but for the purposes of the recording. All right, please, go ahead, come on forward and introduce yourself, and public comment is generally given 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, got the timer. I'm Lauren Thomas. I live at 3025 Groves Edge Lane in Marvin Creek. I already feel there's a kindred spirit. I've been on the board, the volunteer board of the Lindsay Pettis Greenway in my hometown of Lancaster, South Carolina, for nearly 10 years. So it's a more heart project for me to work on that project. It's a 2-mile trail built in a flood zone. And we've raised $10 million just to build 2 miles of trail in a flood zone. So there's one thing I know for sure. It's that building in a flood zone, any construction, is expensive and needs FEMA approval prior to being built. Greenways and flood zones are not simple paths through the woods, and they're not simple footbridges through streams. Here in the village of Marvin, I've given you some maps. There are 5 flood zones: Marvin Branch, 6 Mile Creek, Cowhorn Branch, Tark-Hill Branch, and McBride Branch that all have a FEMA-designated AE zone. There are 7 locations where the Village of Marvin's master plan is proposing greenway construction on or over those areas. They all need FEMA permits. In addition, trail construction plans must be reviewed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service due to the Endangered Species Act. We have a Carolina Hill Splitter. It's a mussel. I know it well because we were intimately involved with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service when we were building our trail. Floodplains are also highly regulated by the National Flood Insurance Program. Last July, the Village Planning and Zoning Director, Hunter Nestor, shared at a neighborhood meeting at Marvin Creek the plans for the connector trail going over Marvin Branch Creek. I personally was geeking out about it. At the very meeting, residents told Hunter, it floods there, so FEMA permits are going to be necessary first. The village staff improperly gained an easement for the Marvin Creek connector by assuring our HOA that FEMA permitting wasn't necessary, when it absolutely is. In the summer, village staff went ahead and hired a trail builder to begin plowing through our neighborhood's common area and flood zone without the federal permits to do so. Trail work began in late December, and within days, they got caught. When the village attorney found out, he gave wise counsel to stop immediately. Trail construction work was halted in our neighborhood until the village learned where they went wrong. And guess where they went wrong? They did not gain the easement with integrity, no federal permits, and now no community trust. Village staff have since learned that it is expensive to even initially hire a civil engineer, no kidding, to find out what it will take to build a trail, to a FEMA-approved trail facility on this specific floodplain, not all of them, will cost at a baseline $33,000, and it's gonna go up. $10 million for 2 miles of trail in Lancaster. And FEMA's answer could be no. We gotta know. That's not counting the cost to design the trail and then to build it. Listen, my neighbors value the preservation of this land and want it to remain untouched. As of this morning, I just printed it out for you, 133 landowners of Marvin have signed a petition to gain back their easement rights. That's 1/3 of the votes for Councilman Barasak. 133 landowners. So this is where we are now. I don't want you to feel caught off guard and looped in by association. The village didn't gain the easement with integrity. Nullifying an easement is a simple process and a free solution to repair a regretful, improper, and expensive transaction. If there's anything that the village needs to build, it's community trust. And if there's anything the village should invest in, it's flood-resilient communities. Thank you.
Follow-up question for you. So what is your, obviously I heard your words, what is your position that you believe is represented by the Marvin Creek? They don't want a trail there at all? Or if the funding were found, say, for example, through the GO bond or something like that, would they still be interested in a trail so long as it conforms and gets approval? I'm just, it's a very theoretical question.
Sure. 133 landowners signed this just last week.
Mm-hmm.
We understand now that the village staff does not understand the federal permitting process, and this has not been budgeted.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much lack of trust in our neighborhood. I don't see how that would be a good idea. Our neighborhood votes, and we're also currently working to vote and find ways for our HOA board to be held accountable for their deeds as well.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that. I understand. I was just curious if the position is that it wasn't permitted, and that if it were permitted, would they still be interested in the trail that, because originally there was a vote to say, hey, we'd like this trail if it conforms. So
I'm not
now
hearing
it seems
that,
a little
and
different.
I'm pro-trail in general,
Okay.
but I'm not hearing that.
Okay,
I
that's-
have very much felt in a tight spot about this. And in my head, I have thought there is no trail that is worth the disharmony of a neighborhood. I'm not interested in building a trail in my neighborhood if our neighbors don't want it. And I am hearing loud and clear that our neighbors don't want it. This is me sharing that information with you.
That's the clarification that I was interested in.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for bringing that issue to our attention.
Thank you.
Lauren, I do have a question. So I just wanted to make sure there's clarification. Is this trail on anyone's private property, or is it strictly on the common area in Marvin Creek?
It is on the common area of Marvin Creek.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is obviously owned by Marvin Creek HOA.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Just one question. So is the area that work being done in the Marvin Creek common area? Because I know there's other parts of the trail that aren't in Marvin Creek.
Say that
or
again.
that connector. There were parts of that connector that were not a part of Marvin Creek.
Yeah, there's a part of it that goes over the preserve.
Yes,
spaces
that's right.
as well.
And for me, I will say where I'm hanging my hat on is the creek itself. Nobody owns that. Nobody owns that. That is philosophically, that is the people's land. You go to the Catawba Riverkeeper and they'll tell you the same thing, that nobody owns the creek. So if you build a facility over this creek, you got to get permission, not just from the landowners, but from the federal government, because it is a flood zone.
Understood. Yeah, I just wanted to, I wasn't sure if the work that you mentioned that was already being done was being done, because I think most of the Marvin Creek Trail is already there, correct?
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
would be the next question. It's in the very back of your information that you have. When you think about what existing trails in the Village of Marvin's master plan are out of compliance,
Okay.
that would be the question. So now you're aware, all trails that are in flood zones need to be FEMA permitted. So by having a Village of Marvin website that says, this is Village of Marvin, existing trails, I would like to know, I mean, who's held responsible for those existing walkways? Do they have FEMA permits? And if they don't, now you know that they need them. I mean, it puts you in a tight spot to know this information. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to Parks and Recreation update.
No,
Tyler?
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you want to speak, Christina?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I knew you were here to observe, but if you would like to address,
But
you
I
may
will
come and
briefly address
speak
the
as
board. I'm Christina Traub. I know I spoke with several of you the last couple of days. I am almost 24-year resident here in Marvin, living in Canterfield Creek, raised our family here. Just very interested in getting more involved in the Parks and Recs and Greenway Committee with the different assets that our community has. We've seen them grow, again, over 20-some years and want to continue to do some smart growth, but also support with time and effort from our family. So just look forward to
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, Christina is an applicant to fill our vacancy, so.
Because we do double names.
Well, that's what I saw. You have a Christina and a Jen, so you need.
Well, so if we have 3 Christinas and 2 Jens, we have a full house.
Yeah,
Oh, my God.
sorry, Bob. You must be the joker.
He's the joker.
But again,
Always a wild card.
that's really all. I know, John, we spent time and Jen.
Yeah, I
so
was going to say, we
yeah.
had a conversation
Yeah,
yesterday.
so
Thank you.
very much
That
appreciate
you're
it.
here to observe,
Sure.
and thanks for introducing
Great.
yourself.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much,
it.
Christina.
All right. Tyler, what have you got for us?
So, events coming up on March 23rd, Saturday. We'll have the Easter egg hunt. It'll be pretty quaint, pretty Marvin-based. Haven't really made it like a huge blast, you should say. We're trying to give the residents a really good opportunity to come out and enjoy it. So that'll be Saturday, March 23rd.
What time?
So it'll be 3 separate hunts. So it's the first one's at 10 a.m. for 0 to 3-year-olds.
And that's the one to go watch.
That's the cute one. That's the really cute one. And then at 11:15, the 4 to 6-year-olds will hunt, and then at 12:30 we'll do a 7 to 10-year-old. Yeah. So that'll be it. You can go on our Instagram and online and find out a little more details. Following that will be Marvin Day on April 27th. That'll be at 4 p.m. on that Saturday. Live music, really good food, drinks will be there. I have a huge kids fun zone, a lot of nature exhibits. So that'll be a lot of fun. Please come out to that. You can. There'll be very limited parking on site. Expect to park at Marvin Ridge High School, and we will have a shuttle service running that will bring you to the park and take you back to your car.
Tyler, did I see, and I'm not sure if PR&G was included, a meeting kind of prior to?
Yes, I did put, that was a council.
Okay, that was just council?
Yes, sir.
And that's just to kind of review preparations?
That's
and
just
so forth?
a small prep. I kind of plan to do the same thing at the PRG meeting the last one prior to Marvin Day. But that's pretty much just like a kind of a day of task meeting, just to go over the general, make sure everybody's locked in.
I just didn't know if PRG was included in that or not, or
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying they'll have their
At
separate.
our next meeting, I'll be
their own
bringing pretty much the same list, but with their names on it.
one. Okay, great.
We all get voluntold.
Yeah, everybody's got something to do.
Right?
June 1st, the 5K will be held at Marvin Elementary School. That will kind of be the home base, be a 5K and health fair. It'll be the same route that it's been the past 2 years. The blood drive will be there, and we'll have a coffee truck, pretty good hang. The 9 a.m. 5K will be the real 5K at 9, and then at 10 o'clock we'll have the fun run, the Kids Mile Family Fun Run.
But what's the date of that again, sorry, you said?
June 1st, Saturday. And then lastly, coming up, trying to finalize the date because we're trying to get the sky right. We've gotten a really good opportunity from a resident who is a volunteer with NASA, kind of has some ties in over there. So we're going to do a stargazing kind of educational, pretty cool event. We're looking at either June 28th or July 12th. We're trying to narrow it down. He's kind of doing his thing, figuring out which sky is going to be best with the best visibility for us. So that'll be capped at 30 people. It'll be $35 for residents. And yeah, that'll be a great way to come out, bring your kids. He'll have crafts, very educational opportunity, and then he'll have his telescopes to look at star clusters, planets, satellites, stuff like that. So that's a pretty cool opportunity we'll have this summer for the residents. So
That's awesome. I wonder if that coincides with any of the meteor showers. I think the Orion one is in the spring? Leonids are in the winter? I don't know.
nothing final yet. We're matching out which date.
And that's going to be at Eford?
Yes, we will do that at Eford Park.
Sweet. That sounds like fun.
Well, let me add, since you're doing an evening thing, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, because we've got a moth night scheduled for August the 8th at Marvin Eford. You can't look at moths until dark as well.
Yeah.
So it'll probably start around 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
right? So it'll be, maybe we can tag team on.
Like how that works?
Yeah, we can get something rolling like that. Yeah, ours is gonna start, we're looking at it'll be a 7:30 start time for ours. He'll kind of get out there and kind of do the, not lecture, but, some more education. And then I think as the sun's setting, there's stuff, as you can see, the moon, yeah, there's a lot to do even before, because then it'll be, it won't really get dark till 9 o'clock.
I know,
So
that's why moths.
it'll be a little late, but,
Because the moths don't come out until then.
right.
Yeah, but still, yeah, I'd like to work on.
But then you just light up one light and you get them
And
all.
they're all there, and that's what we do.
That'll be yeah, we can work on that.
Hopefully you'll get a Luna. All right, that sounds cool.
I know, that would be really cool.
And that's, that's it for events, and
Okay.
nothing really currently updating on trails and greenways.
Okay.
So it's pretty much it for Parks and Rec.
Fantastic. All right, then moving on to unfinished business, discussion of light pollution mitigation.
So,
What have you got for us?
yes, nothing yet.
Okay.
So Hunter and I
Well,
have
that's
talked.
quick and
Yeah,
easy.
Hunter and I have talked, but he's really busy, so we can't
Yes.
get down to talking about it. And a nuisance, we were not going to market anything anytime soon.
Right.
After Marvin Day.
Yes.
I focused on the second part of this.
Yes, okay, that makes sense. So we will push a discussion. I'm sorry? He finished up his Trails and Greenway. Tyler has both duties, and at the end there, he said that he didn't really have any additional information. So we are going to push the discussion of the light pollution mitigation until the next meeting.
Okay, we'll put that on the next meeting.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's all more about how we want to
It's really just a marketing
educate.
campaign.
Yeah, it's a marketing campaign, education campaign, I would like to say better. Relative to what we
Propaganda.
already, it's not propaganda. Relative to what we already have on the books.
Yes.
But what we can also kind of help promote as well, because
Yes.
what's on the books and what can be enforced is.
And Christina, if you want to go ahead and start sending me anything, any kind of materials you've already kind of have laid out, we can start working on that.
Oh, I can absolutely do that. Dark Sky has great information that we can use as a starting place. Perfect, I will, thank you.
Okay, discussion of gravel beds for the tree nursery. I was blown away by the attachment on the agenda with the roots.
Is it not cool?
That was amazing.
So, I know it's your thing.
Yeah, I submitted this as an agenda item based on our conversation in the last meeting, different topics on how we could potentially have a tree farming project ongoing. And from the last meeting, Christina has graciously pulled some information and done some research on the topic. So I was going to go ahead and turn that over to you now to provide all of the information, but I did put the attachments that she provided me just for discussion opportunities here for this meeting.
So the gravel bed thing, we talked about it last time. There's two basic ways to do, a tree farm, if you will. One's above ground, well, I guess there's three, because you can put them literally in the ground, let them grow, and then dig them up. Bad idea for the tree. We can just do that from my backyard, and all of our backyards.
Also a little labor intensive with
Well, it's just not good for the,
yeah.
it's not, the tree does not care for that. It's
Yeah.
a big thing.
Well, and you also typically need like that
That
machine
spading
that comes
machine,
out,
yeah.
Well, I was thinking about getting smaller ones, but yeah, smaller trees. Anyway, so the above ground, and this gravel bed thing that Keith O'Haron told me about. And he's the one that sent all of that information. He has never done one of these. I've talked to him some more. I've talked to a few people I know that work at Central Piedmont that are in the horticulture area. They had never heard of it either, but I'm like, these guys have done it. And they've not just done it in Minnesota, because, yeah, you can get away with a lot of things where it's colder. These guys were doing it in Athens, Georgia. Figure if you can do it in Athens, Georgia, you can do it here, right? It's probably even warmer there. I did talk to some of those guys too, and they were all gung-ho about it. They didn't, and they were not, they all thought it wouldn't work, you know, and then they had to do it, and it, like, this is awesome. So, you saw the pictures of the roots and all that kind of stuff. The problem with the gravel bed thing is the money. The biggest cost is the gravel. Shocking? No, not shocking. So one of the biggest mistakes they felt like, everybody that I talked to felt like they had made, was they used like gravel like you do a driveway with. So that, you know, it's kind of sharp. It's not, I mean, it doesn't cut you, but it's pretty sharp. And they said the roots just held on to that, and they spent a long time pulling the
Like
gravel
combing.
off of the roots, right? And so not good for the trees. So all this work that you've done to make this root ball that is enormous, then you're working, you know, really hard to tear it up. So they suggested pea gravel. And unless you guys know somebody that wants to give us some pea gravel on the cheap, that stuff is expensive. So that was the major cost.
So that was the main discrepancy between, in that flyer, or in that brochure, or whatever we want to call that, like, their expenses were like $3,000.
Yeah, oh yeah, and I'm like,
And the ones that you calculated up,
Were
which
not.
I appreciated the research on those, were
about
more
double
like
that.
$30,000.
Yeah,
It
well,
seemed-
no, it's
it
about,
was less than
it's
that.
a little less than $7,000,
Yes.
but $5,400 of that, and this is from Yardworks. I just went to my local place
Yeah.
and said, how much for this? And I even talked to them about how much it weighs, and so I got the right amount relative to what those guys spec'd, and we end up with about $6,700. And I'm not even talking about the trees yet. Well, I did put a couple dollars in here for trees. So my second problem is finding tree stock. And I went back to Keith and said, you know, it's hard to find. Later in the year, we can get some trees from the North Carolina Forestry Service, and he says he's gotten trees from them before, and probably if we talk nice, we can get smaller amounts, because they tend to sell them in hundreds, and I don't know that we want 100 cedar trees, but I don't think we want 100 anything. So that's possible, but he says they're pretty small, and so to put them in the gravel bed may not be what we're looking for. We're actually looking for something called liner stock. I've got some feelers out to a couple of places. One is local in Charlotte that I didn't even know about. I can't remember their name off the top of my
Is
head.
that the one that you had listed on there?
Harp. Well, that's
No,
Merlin
okay.
Marsh.
Yeah, that's
And they
for
have
Marsh.
some too, but I'm not entirely sure what their sizes are, or their availability. But they're very inexpensive. It's just finding them. So the trees are not going to be the expensive part. The gravel is the expensive.
Expensive part, ironically.
Flip
Okay.
side, if we do the above ground, that's all fine. It's a lot cheaper. It's like less than $2,000 for materials is my guess. And it is a guess. But it's the potting up process and buying soil, and I think I put soil in there.
When you say above ground, are you still talking about above ground using gravel?
No. So we would
You're
use
talking about above
bags,
ground,
probably?
just using, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we'd use bags and soil, and they would sit on top of landscape cloth. That is not, it's pervious.
That's the
water.
non-gravel
Yeah,
option.
right, the non-gravel.
The
The
non-gravel
more tr-
option is bags with soil.
Yeah,
So,
I would call it traditional.
So I had a couple of questions about the gravel one.
Oh, sure, okay.
So it almost looks, at least in the pictures, that we're talking about creating raised beds, and then the gravel sits in the raised beds. Is there a reason why you would do that versus digging into the ground and then putting the gravel into the ground?
You could absolutely do that, but it requires equipment to dig it out.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I was kind of wondering, you know, depending on where we're going to be putting some of these, because we've talked about not just at the park where we might have some access to hoses or water, you know, but we've also talked about maybe in some of our common areas that we have, you know, in easements and things like that, that might make sense, where you might not have that. So you have to rely on natural rainwater and things like
and
that.
that's the thing with the gravel. You cannot rely, you've got to soak it
Even
up.
if it's sunk into the ground? Okay, that's what I was
And
wondering.
here's and this is not an answer that I have gotten yet, and if we decided to go with this, I'll definitely get to the bottom of this part. The original plan is plastic lined, so in my mind, it's a great big pool with gravel in it and trees in it, okay? What happens when you have too much water?
It flows over. I mean,
Well, does it?
this
Or
was,
I want it to go,
Or it could also, you could just put a couple of holes maybe in the
that's-
sideboards.
but
Yeah.
that's not what they've spec'd, and so it almost implies that that never happens. And truly, with those roots, I could see they suck up a lot of water. If
Yes.
you have any big trees in your yard, you'll notice all around them not much grows because it's just dry there, because they just suck it all up. But still, there seems like there needs to be some kind of plan for some of the roots that we get that wash out my driveway. So,
it seemed to me that that was sort of part and parcel of the thing, just because of one single word that showed up in that flyer was hydroponics.
yeah, so they're just sitting in
So
water.
it seems to me that it is a water-based growing method,
I know, but I don't like
a soilless
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I don't like that. So yeah, I would want somebody to tell me that's what they did and it was okay.
Yeah.
I would want, to hear somebody
Yeah,
say
to hear
that.
somebody say that this
Yeah.
thing turned into a gravelly swimming pool,
Yeah.
and that's how it works.
And it was fine, yeah,
Yeah.
because I've seen way too many plants drown. They'll
Right.
drown just as easy as they'll die from, well, actually, they'll drown faster than they'll die from lack of water.
Well, and I guess, so would the gravel, and I don't know if you know this yet, but would it require fertilizers and things like that? Because you don't have the natural fertilizers in the soil.
And you would require fertilizer in both situations, right? Because the soil's not gonna have any much either, not for a tree.
Yeah.
So you're able to just.
Well,
have it-
soil, you could do like Osmocote when you're
Yeah, same
preparing
thing
it
here.
and stuff like that.
Same thing here,
Okay.
because
They
it's a
they
closed
did one application, I think they said in the flyer, but they
Okay.
only had the plants in for a 7-month period.
Yeah, they did, and that's the other thing about the gravel thing. This is what Keith keeps saying too, and those guys that I talked to in Extension. This is a quick turnaround thing. You are trying to get a smallish tree to be a bigger tree really fast, and so that gravel bed allows that. Well, timing also, you can't just plant that whenever you want to. So there's certain times of the year that you're gonna be able to put this in. July is probably not one of them. So just, we gotta think about that. But once we get started and we could get on a roll, then we would have kind of a schedule to it. Yes, Bob?
I guess the question is, Tyler and maybe, how many trees do you anticipate needing in Marvin?
I don't know that we've landed on a particular number. I think,
Well, the reason for the question is, I'd love to see a cost-benefit analysis done on this. Because, if we wanted to go out and purchase an individual tree or trees, how much is that gonna cost? Versus raising our trees, putting them in gravel, maintaining, watering, fertilizing, and without knowing how many trees we need.
And I will give you,
And what kind of trees we need. And I like the discussion about learning about the gravel. But before we move forward with any of this, and we're getting ready to spend taxpayers' money again, I'd like to understand the demand we have for trees, how much it's gonna cost to access, what kind of tree do we want? And then we talk about, okay, that's unreasonable, we can't do that, let's say. Then we need to investigate what Christina's talking about. Well, how do we accomplish getting trees cost effectively for Marvin? And I just think there needs to be some homework done.
well,
My 2 cents.
let me add this part too, and I don't know if this is wholesale prices, I don't know if these are prices that you guys could get, because this is what the North Carolina Wildlife Federation was able to do. For our Arbor Day events, they were able to get 25-gallon trees, or 15-gallon trees, they were both the same price, oddly. They were all oaks and with some maple, and there's something, ball cypress probably. Anyway, $60 a piece for a 25-gallon tree. Trust me, you don't want to move, y'all can move a 25-gallon tree. It's all I can do to move a 15-gallon,
15, yeah.
dragging it into a hole. But you can, but a 25, I haven't seen those yet, so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Anyway, $60 for a good-sized tree, right?
That is
Yeah,
a
well,
phenomenal
so-
price, so how long is that going to be?
Well, so.
Like, how often is that available?
I don't know. But again, that was through a place called HARP, H-A-R-P, and I can't remember what all that stands for, but they're in Charlotte. I've got an email out to them to find out what they have available, and they have a great list.
They're
but-
one of the suppliers for our free trees from Marsh, I
They-
believe.
I don't know. Free trees?
Well, like the cleanup trees that we have the credit
Oh,
for. I mean, not with March, but,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one of them is
well,
Hart.
that's where these trees came from for Arbor Day this year. Last year, they came from Mellow Marsh, mostly. And one's, local, and the other one's out east a little ways. Anyway, I agree with you, Bob, wholeheartedly, because as much as this gravel thing is really cool and I want to play, it's a lot of work down there. It's a lot of work, and.
Well, that actually was gonna be my next
Davey and I have
question.
talked about it. We've talked about, is this something you guys can do? And he says, yeah, sure. But, and it was very kind, but it is still work, and it's work. I mean, we don't know how much it'll be. We can make a guess, but it's not zero. And it'll probably be when you don't want to do it, and you don't have time to do it, that kind of thing. So anyway, buying them from Harp, easy peasy, right? And I bet they deliver if they've got the trees you want. The last thing I'm going to say, this is something that Keith has mentioned to me, that if you're putting trees in a location, in general, you want those trees to be at least 4 feet tall, if 4 or 5 feet tall. Otherwise, they get mowed, they get whatever, they get walked on, whatever. And it's just a perception, in his opinion, the perception of other humans is that if it's not at least kind of eye height, it's not real. So, and I kind of agree with that, 4 or 5 feet tall, unless you're in a situation where you're putting a lot of them and you can maybe protect them, and I'm not talking deer, yes, but people walking on them, then that would be a little bit different. Sorry, one more thing. You mentioned having multiple gravel beds, just to go back to that. One of the biggest problems these guys said that they had, other than the gravel size or shape, was destruction by humans and animals, wildlife, just eating them or stomping on them or whatever.
The
And so-
plants.
Yeah, and it wasn't always wildlife that you're like, this is what they do. Sometimes it was humans. So one place with fencing around it would probably be a better idea than a bunch of places. Just a thought.
All right, just for the record.
That's a lot.
Well, no, and I think that's very cool because when we first started, we've been toying with this idea of supplying our own screening material for the trails and so on and so forth. So I think Bob's point is excellent, and, we need to know what these other options
Yeah.
are so that we can compare what is the demand for screening material versus how can we supply it best.
Yep.
Do we have a supplier that has stuff reasonably? This was a very cool investigative thing because who knew? When you were first talking about gravel, I was imagining a big ditch that had been dug
It's kind of that.
and backfilled, but then I was also amazed by the compact size, that
Yeah.
they had put 100 trees.
Yeah, they are right on top of each
Yeah,
other. They're
and
like
so
this.
it was like, we are no longer talking about an enormous terraforming
Right.
kind of thing. We're talking about a large sandbox.
And the gravel thing, that's another good point. The gravel idea takes up way less space for the same number of trees than
Yeah.
an above ground one does.
Yes,
So-
by a long way. So this was all very interesting, and the price is not astronomical, but once again, it's obviously big enough to have to, compare, especially because it's the pea gravel, who
Yeah,
knew?
yeah.
So just for the record, Davey and Matt, what are your thoughts on this hootenanny now that we have a little bit more information about what it would look like if we did it?
We could try to put together a cost analysis for this. We'll have some conversations before the next meeting among staff to determine, how many trees are needed, the best type of tree for this application.
I can get you a list from Keith of native trees that are just hardier and some that are better for wetter areas and drier and in between, or both.
And good for
So
screening.
He would say like bald cypress is the one to put anywhere. You think of them as being in swamps, but they do really well in dry areas too. So, but he's got a list like that, that would help. And I can also I will keep harping on Harp to get them to answer me about, would they sell to the Village of Marvin? I think so. And being a government entity, we may be able to get a better price than I would get.
And I think as we look at what type of trees, do we want to focus on trees for screening purposes? Do we want to focus on trees just for, just what'll grow best, aesthetics in the environment and things like that? I do know that we do have some recent quotes, I believe, for the trees when we were looking at the quotes for trees just recently in the last couple of months, correct? So if we're looking at to compare for the financial analysis, I don't know that you really need to go out and get a bunch more quotes. We probably just need to look back at those quotes we got just recently in the last 2-3 months to kind of help give us, some indication of what it would be for, just buying the trees at a certain height, as needed versus investing in this.
Well, my bigger issue is finding them. It's not easy to find that medium-sized, well, it's a bigger tree, actually. A 15-gallon or so tree, they're not easy to find, period. I mean, even the Wildlife Federation struggled to find the number that we needed for
that one,
for
screening
Arbor Day.
project.
Well, no.
Oh, for the Arbor Day project,
Yeah, for
yeah.
Arbor Day, we've got 20 trees that they purchased, and they were not easy to find. So anyway, that's.
Okay.
Well,
And
and are the trees that we would eventually look to reproduce, are they the types of trees that are amenable to cuttings and stuff like that? Because, you could start to grow a couple of parent trees, and if you have
I see where you're
somebody
going
that's
with that.
interested in doing cuttings and stuff like that at the
Right.
right time, that might be a way to go as
So
well.
with the gravel bed system, they are using 2-year-old liners. So if you started with a cutting, add another year to that would be my guess, if they
Mm-hmm.
even lived. And you've got to figure out a way to start. I've started a few cuttings.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things I've done.
Okay.
Seeds way easier. Cuttings don't tend to survive very well without really
Controlled environments.
controlled. Thank you, that's the
Yeah.
word I wanted. And now, if y'all want to build me a greenhouse, then I will start you some cutting.
Yeah, right.
Just saying.
The greenhouse project at
Yeah, the
E-Fair.
greenhouse
We
project.
just opened up a
Christina's
new can of words.
greenhouse,
Okay, so Dave, you'll be able to do a little bit of cost-benefit analysis, but from your position, are you looking at this like, are there considerations that we should be taking in mind with regard to the drain on, staff and resources and whatever you guys are doing? I mean, obviously, it's got an impact, but when you're looking at that information, now that we have a handle on kind of what it involves, are you like, oh my God, no? Or, it's okay?
I'm not ruling it out by any means.
Okay.
It's possible, but I think we'll have a better idea after we do a proper analysis.
Sure. Okay, cool.
One other thing, is the indication if we're thinking about gravel, right? And we're looking at the fact that, you don't really need that large an area to kind of start it, but is it something that we think we might want to try both methods, and for a year and see how the results work, with the ability for staff to handle it, all of those things? And do I recall that we decided that a good area would be kind of off down near the community gardens where we already have some water and things like that?
Yeah, I actually went out and did some measurements in the community garden itself. It's already fenced in. There is a large enough area that has not been
Toward one end?
toward one
Yeah,
end that we could put this in, whether we do it to the scale that was quoted here or maybe smaller, but that would work. It would be protected from wildlife, and so we do at least have an area that could be used.
Okay.
Yeah, and inside, which is kind of cool. That would do one or the other. I don't think you could do both in there, because it's one end of the community garden.
Yeah.
It's where you could probably get 2, 4, or 6 more beds in there.
Right, and we do have we have a well nearby as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As well, yeah.
All right, so, it sounds interesting, and depending on how weighing it in the scales comes out, it sounds a little bit more feasible than I originally suspected it might.
To me,
So it's something at least to explore.
yeah, but to me, the end of this conversation for today is that we need to see if we can find sources for trees. They're going to determine how many we need annually, right? How many we think we're we're gonna need annually, and we need to see if we can find sources, and it might just be easier to make a phone call and say, hey, can we have 10 of those?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, because cost-wise, to Bob's point, it might take many years to pay for $7,000 worth of gravel, right? I mean, it sounds ridiculous, right? You can go back and do the blue, what I call blue gravel, but you can go back and do that, and we'll just shake it off of things, and way cheaper, like, not even half.
Yeah.
Yeah, but.
The other option is maybe a donation from someone, somewhere,
Yes.
who has a lot of gravel to give
Yeah,
up.
yeah, exactly. Do you have extra pea gravel?
Who knows? A construction site, maybe. Landscaping.
You never have pea gravel.
Yeah, I know, but a landscaping project that went wrong. I don't know. Okay, so we will end that today for discussion a little bit later as we accumulate more information on that. All right, so moving on to new business. Discussion of PR&G board vacancy and applicants. So we have a new applicant. I don't know what discussion we need.
I was just
To
told to
that?
put it on the agenda.
You were told to put, by who?
He just typed.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I actually asked him to put it on the agenda. It was actually already in front of council at our last work session. And given the fact that everyone on council realized, yeah, we have an application here that we're being asked to act on, but nobody had actually spoken to them. So we talked a little bit
Yes.
about the process that we've kind of followed in the past, which is the council liaison might reach out and have a conversation, and the PR&G chairperson might reach out and have a conversation. And then we did invite her here today just to
Absolutely.
kind of share a little bit of information about herself. But as she mentioned, she's been involved in the community in a number of different ways over the many years, and really just to share amongst the board that our impressions so far. And I felt very comfortable through my conversations with her that she'd be a good fit. She didn't mention it, I don't think, earlier here, but she's also spent a lot of time in her professional career in project management. And goodness knows, that's something with the projects and planning both short-term and long-term, understanding budgets, and how that fits into a plan like that, I think would also be something very important, so, and useful, valuable to this board. I don't know if you want to share some of your impressions and so forth.
Oh, yeah,
and-
absolutely. I just wasn't sure on that.
And then I'll go back to council at our next meeting and kind of share the discussion that we've had.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure with that item on there, if we were sort of discussing vacancies in general, or if we were going to, share our conversations. So I did also talk to Christina yesterday. We had a very, very nice conversation. Long-term residents, a resident who has utilized the trails that we have extensively. So based on, the long years of residence and her use, she has a lot of insight, I think, as to, what her neighbors and everyone probably has a good feel for, what at least her community is using and is looking for, and also, the state of our trails, and, like if you use them, like when you're out in the community garden and you're like, hey, this is a problem, or, we need this, or this is doing well. So I think she's probably got a lot of good insight to bring to us. Also shared your avid gardener, like many of the rest of us, so,
How do you feel about removing invasive species? Sorry, wearing my other hat. Always looking for.
Watch out for Christina, she will have you
She will
excavating
volunteer
privet anywhere she can. All right, so, yes, I feel that Christina would be a great addition to the board, and I have no reservations, so I don't know. Not to put you on the hot seat, because I know you were just here today mostly to observe, but if you're open, I don't know, does anybody have any questions for Christina?
I do. What neighborhood do you live in? Okay. I'm sure I know where that is. Oh, right.
North
okay,
side of
okay,
Joker.
Of course.
Have any representation from there, right?
Right, right.
Remind me to tell you about that. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and I also invited her just, you know, to kind of see how our meetings kind of
Because
work.
I'm thinking she's about to leave and go, yeah, I was kidding. Yeah. Any openings on a different board? Yeah, rethink that, yeah, yeah. You still have that right and ability. Even when you say yes, you can still say no.
But if there's any questions that you have after kind of seeing how our meetings work or anything like that, or anything you'd like to add?
No, again, very helpful to see the interactions and then see, you know, knowing it's just not the board, but you've got your staff and the village as well too, to see how that connects.
Oh, yeah, this is really nice with them here, and we get a lot settled that way, like gravel beds and stuff.
Or just make them do more research.
Well, yeah.
For a brief moment, I thought I was going to be selling honey out of my office.
Yeah,
I
know.
still love the idea of you with a bee costume and a drive-up window.
Thank
Selling
you for
our
that visual. That will get me
hand-raised
through the
honey,
week.
right?
Well, thank you for coming.
All right,
We
yes,
appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you, Christina, for coming today. All right, review of action items.
Yes, Davey's going to work on a cost and benefit analysis for the trees. How many do we need to try to make a determination of how many that we realistically would need each year? Is that correct? Correct
And
action?
I can get a list of what would be the best ones to transplant, what are the ones that have the best survival rate.
Other than that, I think that was the only action item.
Not what I wrote down, but that's what I'm going to do.
And you got your light pollution on the next meeting. to
Yes.
discuss.
Yes.
I will get you some stuff in between.
That's fine.
All right, well, that's a nice short list. Do we have any ongoing action items on the list still?
Let's pull it up. Working on the tree nursery idea. Did you talk with Hunter about, Christina, did you talk with Hunter about the village's lighting ordinance in preparation for this?
Yeah, that's what I did, and we went back and forth, and
I'll take
he
it
will
off.
get
He's a little
something to me
swamped right at the
soon.
moment.
Yeah, swamped, yes.
Other,
And I knew this was not top of the,
And I know at our last meeting, it was me who brought up the fact that, hey, I think we already have something, but
exactly.
did you happen to have a chance to review that? And-
So that's what I wanted to talk to Hunter about. What does this mean? Kind
Okay.
of thing, because there it is.
More than an
What does that
interpretation of
mean?
what
Yeah,
those
yeah. What
ordinances
does that
mean.
mean, and how do we enforce it?
Yeah.
Because you can say whatever you want to, but can you enforce it?
Yeah.
And then, once we
And do
got.
we want to enforce it?
Exactly. Yeah, the light police. Yeah, that's my new
Right.
job. No. Although I have a couple of spots. Anyway, but once we have that foundation, then we can bridge off of that. So, because I would guess that most people do not realize there is even a lighting ordinance
Yeah.
in Marvin.
Agreed.
Period. And so that's a different angle for education than.
Yeah, I
turn
liked
off your
what you
lights.
said more about
Yeah.
education of what we have existing than trying to create anything new or.
Exactly, right. All right, any other ongoing items?
the only other thing was, I know a while back, we talked about using a list that realtors use to figure out when we have new residents. That was the only-
I spoke to Kimberly, I spoke to Kimberly about that because she may have access to it, but we haven't gone in any deeper than that. But,
I'll make
you know, that was more, it's part of the MLS service, I believe, where you can get notified specifically when new residents move in, because I think that's what we were trying to capture. Because we have an understanding of when someone moves into the village because they've built a new home from the permitting process, all of that type stuff. But we don't necessarily know when residents are newly arrived from buying a previous house. And this was all under the discussion of, you know, putting together some sort of welcome package to Marvin to let them know what some of the resources are, to make them aware of Marvin Eford Park, what trails we have existing, those type things, so.
So I'm gonna go ahead and take that off the board's list, since I'll talk to Kim about it. Fun fact, we have a pending annexation, so we will have some new residents.
Oh.
Just one house, but it's nice.
Oh, one house? I was going to say,
One
do
house,
we,
we're filling one of the holes. so.
one at a time.
But,
One at a
okay,
time.
so maybe they are a good one to try this out on, and we get some material together and share it with them.
They are from Australia, so I'm sure they would appreciate it.
Oh,
and
that's
I
even
want
nicer.
to talk to them so I can-
garbage? Oh, okay. I know there's one in my neighborhood too that's asking, why don't Why doesn't my garbage get picked up?
I emailed them, I have not heard back. So go by their door, bang on it, and tell them to annex.
Okay.
So, but you're gonna try to find out about this?
Let me talk to Kim and let me see what this is, and then we can try to figure out
How
at a
we can
staff
tap into
level, what a welcome package would be, the amount of time it would take to do it, and then we'll brief council there and try to figure out, is this a priority for them for us to do? Just because we always have to be careful how we are
Yeah.
allocating staff time with what's going on.
Cool.
Sound good?
Yep,
Okay.
sounds great. All right, any comments from the board? Did we get it all? Oh, Bob, please.
First of all, I want to thank Lauren. I think this is excellent. And brings me to a point, we're the Park Rec and Greenway, and I was unfamiliar with any of this. And I would like to suggest that Tyler, or whoever's appropriate, come before the Park Rec and Greenway on a more consistent basis, giving us updates, talking to us about legislation, what's involved, what's not, so we have a better understanding. Because I'm embarrassed, this is all new to me. A lot of this is new to me. And I've been on the Park Rec and Greenway now for several years, so thank you for that. And the second comment is, I have a question today. The Eagle Scout projects, Jen,
Yes.
fall under their purview now. And a fellow by the name of Brockman has been trying to get a hold of us. Have you been able to touch base with him?
I have been in email contact with him and just recently got his phone number like yesterday. We did, but we have contacted, reached out to him, and we got the, what was that,
It was a PowerPoint.
like a PDF, yeah, like a PowerPoint of kind of their Eagle Scout project, like his ideas and everything. But yeah, and we got all that. But yeah, we are getting some conversation going with him about moving forward.
I just want to make sure we're following up.
Yeah, we are, yeah.
Quick question, who is the staff contact now for Eagle Scouts? I do need to update that on the website, so while I'm thinking about it.
I think I was designated as the contact for Eagle Scout projects, but I think this is a Boy Scout project.
No, this is Eagle Scout.
Okay, because the way I read it, it was,
Frank Rockman, and both of his boys in the Eagle Scouts. And that PDF, if I'm not mistaken, was the signage for trailheads.
It was like trail markers
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
You know, but Davey, I think this is an Eagle Scout project.
okay, I emailed him the same day and I copied you on that email, but he didn't respond back to me, but we've gotten in touch with him since then.
We do have it on the website listed as just Scout projects, not specifically Eagle Scouts. We say Eagle Scouts, Boy Scouts, and Girl Scouts, so
It would make sense to have them all together.
Yeah,
I
this would
mean,
just be
not
one
having a different
contact.
point, one
Yeah.
point of contact for all improvement projects,
Or scout projects.
scout
yeah.
projects, yeah.
'Cause- And I have another contact that needs to talk to you guys. I just heard about it the other day.
Right on.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, all right,
Because
awesome.
my comment would be to second your comment about this, agreed, that this is all news to me too. So I would like for us to be able to have those kind of conversations, whoever is able to tell us that kind of stuff within staff.
Yeah,
right?
I think it would probably be Hunter.
Probably-
because it would-
Hunter is the floodplain administrator.
Yeah, yep.
He has many titles, doesn't he?
We all wear so many.
I know,
hats.
of course, it's a small world, so yeah, I get
I
it.
have a hat rack in my office.
Yeah, you should. And a
change
bee
'em out.
costume.
What do
And a bee
you, stack them up?
costume. Please tell me there's a bee costume.
Yeah, maybe we could get, I'm sure, everyone has questions. We maybe put Hunter on the hot seat a little bit and just at least get background information on what's going on.
Or just kind of a regular update on the trials and tribulations of the Parks and
what's
Greenway
happening, yeah.
issues. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
A big piece of what we do is greenways.
yeah, of course.
That's the G in PR&G.
Yep, that's right. All right, so if nobody else has any additional comments at this point, then I will bring this meeting to a close.
I think John.
Yeah, I just,
Oh, you have one more?
yeah, I just wanted to thank Christina, especially for going out and gathering as much information as she did, you know,
Yes.
and the work that you put in already
It was
for the
fascinating.
nursery idea. And I appreciate, having been with you folks all along, as we come into different, opportunities for people, the way that each of you has, taken different projects on and really dug into them to help educate the rest of us. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you've done a tremendous amount of research. Always going. All right, so at this point, I would, we have to motion to adjourn, don't we?
Make a motion
Yeah,
to
we have to make a motion. Do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved, or a motion, or whatever. Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, everyone, bringing this meeting to an adjournment at 9:55 a.m., under an hour, and everyone go vote.
Go vote, exactly.
I didn't mean to cut you off there at the end, John. I apologize for that. I didn't see you out of my peripheral.